Mr Speaker.
I call the Honourable Member Rahui Katani. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, and thank you. It's a pleasure to stand to speak on the Student Loan Scheme Bill. In our family, education is a big deal. My husband earned his PhD 2 years ago. He works at Massey University, so he's very much into the academic world. It was 25 years ago when I started as a full-time student doing my Bachelor of Arts degree at Waikato University, and then switching after a year to turn my focus to the law. Of our 5 children, 4 are university graduates, and they all have student loans to pay off. But going back to my situation, who would have thought in 1984 when I started out at Waikato University that I would be now turning that study to practical effect, implementing the law in these hallowed halls. In those days our concerns were about scaling Māori down, and what I mean about that is that it was the practice of scaling marks down for students learning Te Reo Māori. And there's an article by Jill Bevan Brown which tells the story of a young man's marks in bursary Māori being scaled down from 94% to 67%. When his mother intervened, she was told that the government could not afford the costs of large numbers of A bursaries earned in the Māori bursary exam. And yet the same degree of scaling was not applied to other languages such as Russian and French. I tell this story because it is but one issue amongst a history of various blocks and barriers that Māori students have experienced in the transition from secondary to tertiary education. Such a history provides a vital backdrop to the Māori Party's position on tertiary education, and in the specific case of this bill around the student loan scheme. The Māori Party believes that tertiary education is a front-end investment into the nation's future and should be freely available to all. It is from that basis that we seek to increase accessibility to education, particularly to tertiary education, to ensure that all people have the chance to pursue tertiary education. So how does the student loan scheme fit into this framework? The Māori Party has tried very hard to ensure that sufficient attention is paid to student loan debt repayments. It has been our position that student loan debt repayments should only start when a student starts earning 1.5 times the average wage. We've also recommended that there be a 5-year grace period for repayments after graduation. That is our core position, and so we have been on the alert to see how this bill, which repeals the Student Loan Scheme Act 1992, the current student loan scheme legislation, can be seen in that light. Significant points of the bill currently before the House are that it will increase the loan establishment fee from $50 to $60 and establish an annual $40 inland revenue administration fee. These would not seem to be aspects that we can support. And further, when we read the submissions, we see that the New Zealand University Students Association supports the current annual assessment of earnings to determine student loan repayment obligations rather than the proposed shift to pay period repayments in the bill. NZUSA is concerned at the proposed move away from a simple annual repayment threshold to a weekly, fortnightly, monthly pay period system, and is opposed to any increased obligations borrowers may therefore face under this bill. Their argument was one of consistency. A shift to a pay period system is inconsistent with other tax obligations. PAYE payments are determined on an annual basis with a year-end square-up of income, as is child support and working for families. Student loan borrowers should not be treated differently, particularly if the IRD is supposedly aiming to improve systems and remove complexity for all parties. So on this ground, it is the view of the Māori Party that the increase in the loan establishment fee and the introduction of an annual inland revenue administration fee will have a negative impact on students who have student loans. Numerous annual reports from te tāhuhu or te mātauranga tell us that Māori certificate level students carry a larger student loan debt 5 years after study, reflecting notably lower earnings. Māori with bachelor's degrees or postgraduate qualifications also had notably higher average leaving loan balances than non-Māori. And yet there are some issues that have come up during our discussions on the bill which warrant further investigation. The implementation of the policy and administrative reforms through a new loan management system has proven more complicated than Inland Revenue expected. And so this bill is a genuine attempt to make implementation easier. The bill extends the exemption for full-time, full-year students from having repayment reductions made from their salaries or wages to also include students who undertake the equivalent of a full-time study workload for part of the year, and to students who started to draw down on student loans before their study commenced, or students who worked over short non-study periods or the Christmas period and intended to study after the period. That is a step forward in terms of being prepared to factor in some flexibility into the system, which we are serious about supporting students from accessing tertiary education, we see as positive. This bill also rewrites the legislation governing the administration of student loans, reforming the way student loans are repaid, the way borrowers manage their loans, and the way loans are to be administered. The changes would allow borrowers to manage their loans electronically and Inland Revenue to provide more services to borrowers. The Students' Own Association, NZUSA, has spoken very positively about this aspect of the bill. They see the expansion of online services and increased electronic and personal management of outstanding student loan balances will be of great benefit to borrowers generally and particularly useful for overseas-based borrowers. The introduction of a new electronic loan management system will enable students to monitor and manage their loans online and from accounts that has been received positively by students themselves. Mr. Speaker, one of the dilemmas parties come to, well, parties that have the option of voting on principle rather than just the party line, is that we oppose some parts of the bill, the increased cost for students, but we support other parts, the incentive to be more effective and particularly to move into the information age. Our vote reflects this dilemma. Kia ora.
I call the